Welcome to 2026. Now, I want to quickly cover how to actually lock in for 2026. This is going to be universal advice. Now, just for clarity, this is all about behavior modification. I won't go into anything deeply technical into Unreal Engine for this particular video. Let's go through it. So the first thing that I highly recommend, and there are going to be two, is that you need to shift your life to absolute reality. By absolute reality, what I mean is things that can be measured and observed in terms of action and reaction on a day to day basis. And you want to step away from delusion and hallucination and dreams. Essentially, you need to change to see yourself clearly by recording your actions and outcomes on a daily, weekly, and then monthly basis. The goal of this is to remove all the internal lies you tell yourself about yourself and fill yourself up with a clear vision of your actual actions. Now, the way to do that is you can use maybe a notepad or an Excel sheet, but essentially, you want to be able to write down what it is you are doing hour by hour and the end result of what it is you were doing. So let's say you wanted to uh, learn something. You need to say, hey, I learned this Monday morning at 9 to 10 a.m., and this is what I got out of it. You can adjust that however you like, but the primary goal is that you need to have actual clarity of what you're actually doing. It's similar to, you have to count actual calories to lose weight, not how you feel, but what you're actually eating. If you want to learn how to be good at, let's say, jogging, you have to measure your actual distance and the actual time it took. And for most of your goals, which I'm guessing are related to business, and usually people have business and fitness goals at the beginning of the year, you want to be able to clearly understand what you're actually doing and the end result you're getting from it. So, there are a couple of little, sub things you're going to be doing. Number one, by doing that and listing out what you're actually doing, you begin to develop an actual unified personal outlook of your life and what it is you're doing. You want to shift away from just being someone that reacts to being the cause in the cause and effect relationship in life. Essentially, you want to reduce the amount of time spent in your head talking to yourself. It's good to speak to yourself, but you want the amount of time you do that to be minimal, because all that mental energy, it's kind of like the difference between running a benchmark and actually producing and building your application. Running a benchmark and producing your application put the same stress on your CPU, but only one produces valuable work. You have to think more in terms of the physical. Reality reacts to your actions, not to your feelings, not to your vision, not to your beliefs, not to what you hope for. It reacts exclusively to your actions. Then you really do need to have a clear work plan day by day. You need to know, hey, what are you doing Monday? Okay, this is what you're doing Monday. Tuesday, you're probably doing this. Okay, Wednesday, what am I doing? Am I doing marketing? Am I doing production? What am I doing on a day by day basis, so that you do not end up in a situation where you're burning a lot of mental energy trying to figure things out on that day. You need to have a plan. At least if you're just getting started, have a plan for at least a day. Then as you develop the ability to plan longer and longer out, plan a week ahead, plan 2 weeks, plan a month, but you're planning out all of your actions. And the further ahead you can plan out your actions, generally the better. Now, the other thing is that successful outcomes are sort of like a completed wall, right? But to get to that wall, we need to work backwards and reverse engineer the actions we need to take to that. So, to make the complete wall, you need to understand how each brick is laid in. Now, for the purpose of game development, the completed wall is like a complete finished game product out on shelves, out on Steam, ready to go. But before it reaches Steam, you need to say, okay, so what's my game? I'll give you a simple illustration. So I know the game that I'm currently working on is going to be 100 levels. All I need to do is understand what it takes to make one level. And then I can understand that's all I'll need for the other 100 with a general plan. I just need to understand what it takes to make one brick. And inside of game development, the process is generally quite direct. You start with a general story plan, go into level design. This is just for one level. You need to make sure that that tech is properly built up, whether it's a movement system, basic gameplay design. Any core mechanics need to be there. You need to have a level storyboard. Any cutscenes and code for it need to be ready to ship. Then you move on to art, animation, VFX. You need to have the audio, the voiceover for any of the dialogue, sound effects for any other actions in the level. Then you want to do play testing and finished. And those are the bricks that make up one level. And in developing my game, all I know is I need to do that 100 times with an overarching story. That's a simplified way of doing it. And depending on your project and the type of project you're working on, the bricks and the final wall are different, but you have to have a pretty solid understanding of what you're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis and make sure you do the day-to-day. Then you're going to need to have, I like to call it a medium difficulty vision. The vision, in other words, your scope cannot be so big that it's going to take you 3 years. Like, I always find it fascinating when someone says, hey, it's going to be 3 years before I release my first indie title. Depending on your life situation, if it takes you 3 years, you may starve to death, right? Or it takes too long. For your first release, I really think you should target a year maximum. Try to keep the vision medium difficulty. It shouldn't require you to mortgage your house and do anything financially crazy. You shouldn't go into debt for this if you can. Just don't. You need to have it medium difficulty. And then the best thing about that is the smaller your vision, the smaller the success you're targeting, the more people in real life that you can reach out to and talk to that have actually achieved that vision. And the reason why having real people in real life that have achieved what you're going after, that are accessible to you, is so important, is because it creates the opportunity for you to talk to them and get a bit of back and forth. And remember, you're a human being, okay? You're not a robot. That simple back and forth and affirmation of, oh, this is how I did it, will teach you so much. So once you have all of that and you've clarified the daily work that leads to that outcome, you're really good to go. The important thing to remember is that life is fundamentally all a cause and effect relationship. And to truly lock in, that means you've stepped away from fantasy, delusion, and hallucination to clearly understanding cause and effect. And then you make yourself as a human being more of a cause. And an easy way to understand it is, hey, look back at 2025. Look at all the things that came out of 2025. Were you mostly eating the effects of other people's actions, or were you primarily a cause in your life? You want to shift more towards being the cause of things in your life and away from simply being someone that reacts. That's something very important. That's the first thing, right? The second thing is deeply connected to the fast, but it's more about your mental health and essentially limiting, the use of your mental resources. You are a human being. You're first and foremost an individual. So there are many things that are trying to take your time, but every time you doom scroll or you drink yourself to death or you go online and watch questionable things, all you're doing is you're poisoning yourself and you're poisoning your time. Now, entertainment is good, but you can't be all entertainment. I was looking at a meme recently. I think this was the day when the year was ending, and someone was like, "Hey, congratulations on wasting 99% of the year." And I was like, that's scary to me. The idea of the meme of, wasting most of the year. And most of wasting of the year comes from excessive entertainment. People are addicted. You may be addicted. The solution to that addiction is you're going to need to start highly valuing and protecting your time. You have to protect it. Your job as a human being is to succeed as an individual first and foremost. So, poisoning your time with problems of the world, people hating on media, negative reviews of games, some of which are negative reviews of things you're not even interested in, fictional problems, real problems, racial problems, economic, geopolitical. Filling up your mind with all of that does not bring you closer to your goals, unfortunately. And no matter what happens, those things will still be there. So you must protect your time. Because I'll be honest, I find a lot of people, especially like young people, whose time is basically free. As long as there are memes, their time is basically free. With adults, I find it a bit less of a problem because they're kind of forced to recalculate their time due to work and responsibilities. But regardless, you must have a very high price on your time. YouTube does not deserve your time. It's the truth. Netflix and other subscription programs, video games do not deserve your time. When you are moving towards fully locking in, your time has a very high price. In other words, if you're not getting direct value for you, you're not interested. That's super important. And this is because, in order for you to lock in and succeed, you are only going to do so by being a master of your domain. In other words, you must be good at what it is that you do specifically. No one ever becomes successful by knowing one thing about 1,000 different topics. You need to know 1,000 things about one topic. A simple illustration is, for me, with all my work right now, I only benefit from being good in game development knowledge. So if something isn't covering game development knowledge, for me, it is not of a very high amount of value. It has a lower value. And that varies from person to person based off your specific vision for your life in 2026 and what you're trying to do and achieve. So, what do I mean by like specific domain knowledge? I mean all the actual nitty gritty stuff. I have to know what production looks like. How do I write out a game story? How do I manage audio in a game engine? How do I manage visual effects and the visual effects budget? How do I manage programming and logic and make sure that it is efficient? How do I budget for the project and understand the project timelines? How much time do I have? How is it going to work? What are the milestones and what is the launch date? How do I distribute? Do I have a Steam page ready to go? Do I have an Epic Games account? How do I publish on Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch? How do I get that done? How's the payment processing done? How is the taxes? Which regions am I targeting? Having that specific domain knowledge is important. I can either go on Reddit for dooming, or I can go on game development Reddit, check on people a bit, talk to them, come back. When I'm scrolling through YouTube, does YouTube understand that the thing that I'm working on now is a game, and is it forced to feed me things in my domain when I'm speaking with my friends? Of course, you can talk about all kinds of stuff, okay? That's your leisure. But do they have a deep understanding that I am focused on developing my game and publishing it? And do they react in such a way? Do my parents take me seriously? Okay, this is not for everyone, but I'm saying, like, if you're young, do your parents take you seriously? Have they seen the prototype looking good? Do you have publishers on call if you want a publisher? Even if it's rejections on call. And I'm not talking about email. I don't do email. No one reads your emails. I mean, if I do not have the ability to physically call a human being that is in my domain that can give me money, then I'm done for. For a lot of you, do you have a YouTube channel detailing your development journey? If that's like how you plan on getting together the money because you don't have the savings or any whatever thing it is in your domain, you have to have it mastered in your domain and focus on making sure your domain is a place where you have control, mastery, knowledge, and work to demonstrate. Those are the two things. Now, let me cover them once again. Number one, you want to measure your actions and results in reality. And number two, you want to focus totally on your domain so that you develop power within it. And I think with just those two little things, you're going to have a very good time inside of 2026 working towards the life you want, and just enjoy it. Enjoy the journey. It will always have difficulties, but the important thing is you should really be the primary cause in your life. I wish you well, and I'm really looking forward to the year. I have things that I'm working towards. Last year was reasonably successful for me, and I like progress. It makes me happy. And of all the different careers I've had, being in game development for me has been fulfilling. I hope you find the